Cohesion, Elisabeth Gruber, Austria.
More and more these days it is becoming apparent how divided our society has become, and that more and more human beings are living their lives in loneliness, psychological distress and misery, unnoticed by their environment. In times like these was the title of an article I wrote at the beginning of 2020. At that time, for an unfortunately very short time, one had the extremely pleasant impression that the majority of the population was striving to overcome the impending corona pandemic together with best efforts, particularly at the level of the political leaders. If only for a few weeks, something like pulling together could be heard. For the good of the people, they said. What is left of all the big slogans and assurances, especially among the political elite, is a comprehensive failure, so that society is suffering great damage in many respects. In particular, however, interpersonal cohesion has suffered to such an extent that in many areas we are faced with a veritable shambles and are now trying, completely distraught, to pick up the pieces as best we can. Especially in difficult times, however, it is more than ever of existential importance that we as humanity learn to stand together again in peace and solidarity. However, a completely different picture is currently emerging in society, and solidarity and understanding for those who think differently, who may their own self-determined decision through thorough deliberation come to an abrupt end if the satisfaction of their own interests could be hindered as a result. Many of us would never have dreamed that we would suddenly be ostracized by society just because we have our own point of view and opinion and a different, realistic view of the spread of the disease and the mostly completely inadequate measures. If, as a result of close observation and probing of the true facts, a different assessment is reached than that of the general public, things can get really uncomfortable. And some human beings suddenly find themselves confronted with an incomprehending, or even aggressive majority, and are not infrequently the target of outright hostility. This is indeed a circumstance that first has to be dealt with. If this even happens in one's own family, relatives and circle of friends, because they trustingly believe in an overpowering conviction machine that spreads fear and panic, this is a very stressful state for many affected human beings, if they do not counteract it themselves through sensible, neutral positive thought work. Many FIGU members and FIGU friends all over the world are also making similar experiences and are also well advised not to get into inner turmoil, but to make the best of the given situation with prudence and to apply for themselves, against the general currents, the still very necessary precautions for their own health. The fact that in such times solidarity, encouraging and friendly expressions and support arrive in loving solidarity from all over the world is also very gratifying for many of those affected by the unpleasant circumstances. It suddenly becomes a certainty that there are many human beings out there in the world with a similar attitude, even if it is only a minority in the great mass of human beings who think for themselves, who are devoted to reason, understanding and logic, and who want to make their own decisions in a peaceful and self-determined manner.
How is it that our society is so divided?
One reason is certainly that countless human beings have forgotten how to live life correctly. In their purely materialistic view of life, only material values count, such as possessions and wealth, money, social prestige, pleasure, travel, luxury, games, sports and fun and so on, which supposedly make existence worth living. In such a superficial orientation to life, there is no room for the effective values and reality of life. It is not questioned what the effective meaning and purpose of existence is based on and what the true laws of life are, such as the unchangeable iron law of cause and effect, as well as the fact that one is fully responsible for one's own life, thinking, feeling and acting. This is independent of whether the human beings are aware of it or not. Those of us human beings who wallow in purely material realms find it particularly difficult to live life correctly when crises have to be overcome. For in order to live life correctly, we human beings have to explore the deeper meaning of existence in order to be able to grasp the true interrelationships of human existence with all the universal laws associated with it. If life is perceived as an evolutionary learning process, it is also recognized that everything in life has two sides and it has to be mastered with all the highs and the lows. Accordingly, we also adjust sensibly to the special challenges in times of crisis, whereby in turn evolutionary valuable progress can be gained from overcoming them. Unfortunately, many human beings lack this insight, so the normal state should be restored for them as quickly as possible so that the old life can be lived again. With this attitude, the purely selfish, egoistic interests of politics, business and the pleasure-seeking people meet in an unwholesome manner. An attempt is made to force a normal state which, in view of the catastrophic exploitation of the earth and destruction of the environment due to the excessive crisis management, can never come to a good end in this manner, but only end in a catastrophe, as is always the case when something wants to be forced against all reason. Coercion naturally creates an imbalance, which leads to disadvantage and great injustice for one side and divides society through this approach. Nothing good has ever come out of illogical and unjust coercive measures. Quite the contrary, as the past amply proves. Rather, prudent and effective humane measures and their implementation are required to effectively manage crises in a logical manner that is equally beneficial to all human beings. On the one hand, this would require great crisis management skills on the part of those in positions of responsibility. On the other hand, we as a people would be called upon to support these unavoidably necessary measures if they are indeed reasonable, logical, and sensible. But this also clearly means that the people themselves must investigate the true facts through their own thorough deliberations. If reason, intellect, and logic are not used by the people themselves, it is pre-programmed that everyone runs the risk of becoming a victim of the manipulating machinery of persuasion, with greed for profit then playing a major supporting role. We should therefore be aware that a split in society only occurs when responsibility is shifted to politics and science and personal responsibility is not taken. We as a people are called upon not to let ourselves be incited, but to put the common and unifying elements in our society back in the foreground, because only good cohesion in all matters guarantees us peaceful coexistence.